Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. Of course, my name is Bryce, and I'm joined with one of my best friends from across the pond, our cousins across the pond, Catherine over in the UK. How are you doing today, Catherine?
I'm trying to think of a good positive answer to say that. I'm okay, but disappointed
Me
in a lot
too.
of different ways. In a lot of, not just with the global thing, on a more local level. I'm disappointed in humans, big time.
Yeah.
A
And
lot of assholes out there. So sorry, I'll get that in early. Yeah, there's no nice way of saying it, and I can't wait to call them out. Oh.
I know, I know. Well, guys, before we get into it, I told Catherine I have a little surprise for her since she and I both are dog lovers. But before we get into it, guys, I just want to go ahead since we are less than a month away from our grand opening of the Esoteric Academy. We are right now still running it for the soft launch for $25 a month, which, Catherine, you've been in the spiritual healing world. That's really cheap, isn't it, for a full academy?
It's literally incredible. I mean, there's so much already. You're only in the soft launch, and there's
Yeah.
already so much information on there. And I know a lot of the plans that you've got of what's to come. So this is absolutely fantastic, guys. You'd be mad not to go for it. You really would.
We've got Catherine on there as well. Now we're still playing around with the website of how to like set things up, where to put the courses, where to put the workout classes, the meditations. You see here's Catherine. We've got bigger plans for Catherine as well. I just added yesterday, I added 3 new workout classes, a disco Shakti class, which I had so much fun filming that. I also added a 75-minute fusion class because I told you, Catherine, I've got teenage girls that really love the fusion classes, which again is like the best compliment you can get from a teenage girl. So I created a 75-minute class for the girls. I picked music from oldies and then from Generation X, millennials, from the new age, so that all the new age meaning the young kids, so that everybody had music they could enjoy in this class. And then I also put up a 20-minute quick cardio burst for those who don't have a lot of
Brilliant.
time or who are feeling really agitated and just need that quick like to get stuff out. And so we're constantly adding that onto that. On in the dashboard, you'll go to overview. That's where you go to our courses. My computer's being a little bit slow, but that's where you go to our courses, where it's loading right now, where you have some of the meditation courses from Paula, where so there's the healing and ascension, and then you have I just dropped polishing the mirror, which is a full complete course over some of Ram Dass's teachings, which also combined Western philosophy with Eastern. Of course, the alchemy of movement, the Bhagavad Gita course, and none of these courses will ever go anywhere. They're just going to build up, and so you can do this on your own time, guys. And again, we're still playing with how we're setting up the website to make it easier for people. I'm not going to pull it up because I don't want to show people's private information, but we do have a community chat for everybody who's a student to get to know each other and support each other. And I'm really excited about, like, Catherine's going to do more stuff. Todd is going to be doing a Vedic chanting course. Cindy is doing a mobility course. Paul and I really want to make this like a master class, like master teachers from there, whatever, because full spirituality 100% involves your health too.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna have people from all over, so that all different lineages, so that you have a wide variety of selection. And we're gonna be starting our monthly calls with you guys starting in February, monthly classes, so I can do my best to help you with your alignment, so that when you do it on your own, you're more knowledgeable, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, for right now, guys, until February 20th, 2025, we're only charging $25 a month for tuition, which is like the price of a drop-in, one-day drop-in class here. And if you purchase before February 20th, you're locked in at that price. We're not going to up your price. After February 20th, it's going to go up to $40 a month, which is still super, super cheap. And so, but you also get 7 days free trial. So if you don't like it after 7 days, you can return it, no problem. So, Catherine, I sent you, before we get into it, I would like to introduce you, Catherine, and our audience. I got to make sure the sound's turned off because of copyright, but I want to introduce our audience to America's most favorite canine and famous canine. The second dog, we'll say the second canine because it's the vice president's dog, Atlas. And I wanted to start our video with this because we love our dogs. Now I'm turning the sound off again. But this little boy, this little German Shepherd, there's Usha, there's Atlas. He travels around and has been traveling around on Air Force Two now, the second one. And he's been on the campaign trail the whole time with the family, travels with them all over to their all of their events. And he has become America's favorite dog. He is all over the media now. Again, his name is Atlas. He's a German Shepherd. And there was a really funny clip where Vance was talking to Tucker Carlson, and they had made up this story that Atlas was a quote unquote rent-a-dog to make JD Vance look more personable, but that's, I mean, they've had Atlas since he was 8 weeks old. And so I wanted to start that off. I think I might have some pictures here of Atlas too, but I just thought how fantastic. Besides Atlas, JD Vance's children have taken the spotlight here, his 3 little kids, because God, what a long day for a 3-year-old to have to sit through, and just her little band-aids on her fingers and sucking her thumb while her dad was being sworn in. And I wanted to kind of talk today, Catherine, with you. Kind of that I sent you an interview yesterday. It was an old interview before Vice President Vance was even considered as Trump's running mate, and it was kind of over his book Hillbilly. Hold on, let me pull it up here. Hillbilly Elegy. And I'm going to go ahead and just show, for those who are not familiar with Hillbilly Elegy, the Wikipedia page. It kind of goes into, and I actually want to read the book. I've seen the movie, but I have not read the book yet. It goes into like the Appalachian economy, and kind of goes over Vance's life growing up. And they made a movie back in 2016. Ron Howard actually filmed a movie with I think I have some of the pictures pulled up here, with Amy Adams played Vance's mother, and then Glenn Close played Vance's grandmother. And JD Vance grew up extremely poor in the Appalachian Mountains. His mother was was an addict, very violent childhood, and so his mother kind of raised him. And therefore Vance, who's a year younger than me, definitely made choices in his life to better himself. And I think that's part of the reason why America has kind of fallen in love with JD Vance, because it doesn't appear that he was groomed to be in this position. You know, a lot of people, I know, Catherine, and then we'll get into some of the things he brought up in this interview, but a lot of people, especially in our community, were talking about when he first was selected, how fundamentalist he was and all this kind of stuff. And I beg to differ, because he's married to a practicing Hindu. A fundamentalist Christian would never be married to someone of a different faith. So there's, that's kind of goes what we've been talking about, Catherine, about like doing your own research and really listening instead of just taking what other people say, really looking at stuff. And so did you get a chance to listen to the interview at all, Catherine? Any thoughts before we get into some of the points?
I listened to about 2/3 of it, and it was a real surprise to me, because look, I don't know, I'm in the UK. Only because of these global events do I follow some of your political leaders, in inverted commas. And obviously over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been doing that a lot more so. So I've seen real mixed reports about Vance. I will make a comment with that dog, actually. Now, that's one thing I've seen with the dog, but the dog did not go up and pay much attention to JD Vance.
Oh, there are other videos where the dog runs to him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'd like to see that.
There's so many videos of the dog like running to him. In the interview with Tucker Carlson, that's how he comes up, because the dog runs in and like leans on Vance.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. That's good, because I mean, the dog looked quite stressed in that clip, but which it would be, going on an airport and with all that going on.
All the promotion.
So I found it really fascinating, because I've not heard any of that history, and I think, we all know how much of an impact how we grow up and our family situation in the area we grow up in have such a huge impact on us as a person. Yeah. So it was really fascinating to hear that insight from that interview, and that was stuff I obviously hadn't heard before, and how that would shape someone. But what I didn't get to the stage is of how he got from that upbringing to where he is now. And I find that really fascinating to see how that materialized. And obviously he's very techie in terms of his work, what he's doing in terms of work, in terms of crypto. It's all down the digital stuff again, which we were talking about off camera before. So it's interesting, and I'm putting it in the mixing pot there. And I think it's fascinating, because so often you see people that have this amazing drive where they've come from really poor circumstances, and it's a classic example of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, really.
And taking that responsibility. Yeah, I had watched Hillbilly Eloquy when it came out on Netflix like
Right.
long time ago. And I remember it was a very inspiring story. And at the end, they said this is a true story, and he was a senator. And then I forgot about it. And it wasn't until a little while later, a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, where I was reminded that, oh, yeah, that was about, oh, that's who that was. And we went back and rewatched it again. And what Vance did is he used, and somebody brought this up, I was listening to some other interviews this morning, is obviously Vance's grandmother saw how intelligent he was and needed to give him a stern upbringing so that he would actually get himself out of, because he had the potential to get himself out of that situation. And in this interview, he talks about the economy of Appalachia. And there was one thing that really, and you know, for me, Catherine, I was thinking about this too. We were kind of talking about this off air. You know, we were saying what's true today might not be true tomorrow. And I remember when I was like in the 4th grade, my teacher told my mother, Mrs. Carroll, and my mother's always brought this up, that there are really kind of two types of thinkers in the world, generally speaking, obviously varying degrees of both. People who think very black and white and people who think very gray. And people who think gray are people who don't necessarily need an exact answer. And this Mrs. Carroll to my mom, that's really how Bryce is. She doesn't really, she's comfortable not having, and she told my mom, you know, this means Bryce is probably going to excel in the arts. She's going to excel in philosophy, stuff like that, which she was right. Like, that's what I ended up doing. How old are you in the 4th grade? Like 8, 9 years old, 10, something like that. And then black and white thinkers are people who really desperately want that exact answer. They like puzzles. They like math. They want to have like an exact rhythm, exact patterning. And of course, again, there are varying degrees. I know there are people who can do both. This is a scale, right? There are varying degrees of these attributes people have. And so with JD Vance, one thing he mentioned in this interview that I thought was so interesting, I thought this was so fascinating, and I don't know what the answer is moving forward for places like Appalachia, because even though Appalachia, this culture is specifically in America, I think there are different varying degrees of this culture all over the world. Like, this is a human issue. And JD Vance talked about that with Appalachia, when his ancestors were settling that area, they were coal miners, they worked a lot of manufacturing jobs. And he said something so interesting, because Appalachia is known to be, obviously there are a lot of wealthy people in Appalachia, but by and far there are a lot of very poor families in the mountains. You know, try to tell the people of Appalachia that there's such thing as white privilege and they'll laugh in your face, right? This is some of the poorest places in America, predominantly white. And he said to the interviewer, he said, it's interesting that the income level really hasn't changed. What's changed is the work. And I'm paraphrasing the way he said this, guys, and I'll tag the interview down below. He said when he was a little boy, the work that like his grandfather did, they took pride in that work.
Absolutely.
They loved what they did. And I thought, how interesting that he's saying we're misunderstanding, because the amount of money families are bringing in has not changed, but what they do has changed. And now we see this massive incline in addiction in Appalachia and alcoholism, and how that's actually affecting the overall culture. So I thought that was he's so right, isn't he?
So right. And, you know, it really made me think when I heard that, because look, the thing is, when they've looked at the blue zones, so the areas of the world where the people live the longest, and they're spread out in quite a diverse area. But one of the things that is summed up by the Japanese word ikigai is about having a purpose. And one of the things they've shown that is linked to longevity, happiness, holding down good relationships, is when you've got a purpose. And what he was talking about in the interview was that, you know, there's so much snobbery from people around jobs, but these people who were doing these manual jobs love the fact that they were powering with their literal physical labor the development of America.
Yeah.
Because without that power, without the coal, without the pan, none of the other industries. So there was a real sense of purpose of how they were contributing. And when people feel they're not contributing to the greater good, it's a sliding scale. And whether you're looking at it from the psychology point of view, or the addiction side of things, or the health outcomes and everything, having a purpose and feeling a sense of contribution are absolutely key. And so many people have lost that. And this is why I'm so scared. Scared's the wrong word thing. So frustrated by the way that we're all being pushed into this technological development, because yes, we don't want to go back into the dark ages, whatever they were, because we know all of our history has been lied about. However, I've not learned any periods in history that I would actually want to go back to, because they've all got pretty horrific circumstances. But the thing is that why can't we learn and get back into balance? You know, we were talking before about the announcements about putting money into an mRNA beep, which isn't a beep, but if as soon as you call it the V word, you're indemnified. The manufacturers are indemnified. So there's a reason why they're calling things that aren't V's.
Yeah.
You all know what I'm talking about, jibby jabs.
Yeah.
And how this links into what I think he said is that how many people deep down, we all know, I think all of our listeners know quite a lot about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. So we can fool ourselves. We see us all doing it time and time again. We can try and convince ourselves with our words that this is okay and that we're bought into this. But if there's a misalignment between your head and your heart, you're out of coherence, then you know you can't lie to yourself really at that level, even if it's not a conscious awareness.
Right.
The body does hold the key. So I think why that was so important is throughout so many areas of the world, people have lost their sense of contribution and purpose, and then want are hiding in nothing. And where on earth are people going to get contribution and purpose when we're all going to be replaced by robots?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's that pride that you did a good day's work. You come home, and he gave an example with his grandfather. As a little kid, his grandfather could tell you everything. They drive past a car, and he could tell you everything about that car because he helped put that car together. And it's that sense of patriotism too, with each country, because if your community is responsible for powering your country, you do feel like you've contributed to your countrymen. And
you are. And you actually are. You know, this is
American. For this story, it's American made, American produced. In the UK, it's UK made, UK produced. And so when you take that away from people, they even talked about like these different innovations that we've got going on now, where America might come up with a plan for a fancy phone, but then send it to China to be made.
Yeah.
We actually need to create with our hands. And it kind of goes back to some of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, where, and of course, this is more on a metaphorical, spiritual, but you can also bring it into the physical as well, where Krishna tells Arjuna to love the work for the sake of the work.
Yeah.
Not just for the fruits of your labor. And I think in a lot of Western culture, I don't think this is just an American thing. I think this is true in a lot of maybe even some Eastern culture too. We're raising our children to make good money, not necessarily to be happy.
Not to be happy and not to be creative and not to feel that they're actually fulfilling any purpose. If you look at every time I go into a big city, like last time I went into London, yes, there's some amazing things about it. And of course, we've all got confirmation bias. So if you choose to look for the negative, you'll see the negative. If you choose to look for the positive, but if you're trying to be quite objective, you can see by people's demeanor, by the way they carry themselves, by the lack of vibrancy and energy that they have, that most people are literally, just like in 1984, going off and being locked in their cell, performing their tasks that they've been told to do, and going back with no real sense of satisfaction. I think most people who do, whether it's a physical job, there's that saying that we grew up with about there's nothing more satisfying than the feeling of a job well done.
Yeah.
And they've done loads of studies that show that if something comes too easily, or if you've got too much choice, it leads to paralysis by analysis, and it also leads to a great sort of anxiety, basically. And we've got so consumerism driven and so money driven, we've forgotten the purpose, which is why so many people, when you ask them, what do you love to do? What are your passions? They can't answer, because that's so far removed from how they're living their life. And it's completely wrong. And what worries me is everything I'm seeing with the new administration. And of course, it's only days. And of course, I'm only seeing the bit of the picture puzzle that I'm being fed on the platforms that I can look at. But there's nothing that gives me any encouragement to that we're going back to what we really want to be doing, which is all having that sense of purpose and contribution. And when we see the way that so many people behave, even the way they talk about people, I think you told me about it and someone else did, so I started watching it, the series Traitors.
Yeah.
The game show. Now, everyone have been saying, watch it, watch it, watch it. I don't get much time to watch anything, but it come up enough times, I thought I've watched it. Oh my goodness, there's so much. We could do a whole series on that, about what you learn, because how quickly people turn on people and jump on the bandwagon. How their word means nothing. So they'll all say, oh, I'm voting for you, I'm so sorry, but I love you. And you're like, no, you don't love them. You're not sorry, it's a game, you're in it to win. You know, we've devalued everything. But what's most interesting is how they cannot, even people, you've got army people there, you've got psychologists there, you've got from every walk of lives, you've got gardeners from every walk of lives, and we're so disconnected from following our gut instinct and following the crowd. So you'll always have a couple of people that will pick them out, and they're so easily swayed to vote for someone else. And this is what I feel we're all like. We're so easily distracted now, because we haven't got that sense of purpose, because we haven't got that sense of belonging, because we don't feel that what we're doing can actually contribute to make a change.
We don't feel secure in our communities, and that is why I love Traitors, because it is psychological warfare. And I'm not a game show person. I don't like board games. Only board game I like, we call it Clue. I think you guys call it Cluedo, but I like Traitors. But I think the thing about Traitors, and what's interesting for us as the viewer, and I would highly suggest, I've watched the English, the New Zealand, the Australian, and the American. The English and the American film at the same location.
Wow.
Yeah, the same castle. The American is hosted by Alan Cummings. And I will say the difference between the Americans, the way the Americans do it, is the first season they had like regular people and celebrities. Now they only do reality show celebrities, which makes it even more fascinating. And I'll tell you why, for the psychological. Now, I don't watch like Survivor or The Challenge. I don't watch any of these shows. So I don't know who these people are anyway. These could just be random people off of the street. So I don't. But what is interesting about the American cast versus like the English cast or the Australian cast is that the American cast, because they've done this before, because Survivor, you're voting people off. You're creating fake alliances. It's all psychological as well. Also physical, but now it's more, is that they've already done this. And so the conniving and the way that they can sell, the way they can lie so easily without batting an eye. And it's a game. Yeah, it is a game. It's just a game. But is it? Now, this American season, the third season that's out, it's only like 3 or 4 episodes out. They have this guy that was like this champion of survival, the challenge, one of those, and they brought him back, and all the other contestants were like, oh shit, when he walked in, because he's such a good player, I guess, good poker face. And I don't know who he is, because I don't watch these shows. Last Friday when the new episode came out, he had double-crossed the people he was. And I'll go and say it, because we know, that's what I was getting to, as a viewer, we know who the traitors are, and we know who the faithfuls are. He was a traitor, and he turned on another traitor like that.
Yeah.
And sold it and got that traitor booted out. And watching that as somebody who loves psychology anyway, and seeing the way, and even when somebody like the first day, one of the faithfuls found a traitor, and he was damned to determine this person, and this person sold it that he wasn't.
Yeah.
As a viewer, you're like, you're right, dude. But then that dude starts questioning himself. So you start questioning your own reality and how easy your mind. And what's interesting too is with the faithfuls, because there's only X amount of traders and mostly faithfuls, how they start making up scenarios in their head with other.
Oh, this is what I thought was so brilliant, Bryce. I mean, I would encourage people. I know it's Don't TV, but it's got such an important message, and I think it's even more potent when you've got normal members of the public.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, we're so easily to be manipulated.
Yeah.
And most people find it incredibly easy to lie. Most people take everything incredibly personally. And so I'm sitting there watching it, and it's hysterical. You've got one person who's a traitor, who's telling everyone that they're not a traitor and doing this, and then gets really upset when someone else does something to them and said they can't trust them. And you're like, that's the whole point of the game.
You're a traitor. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the game. You've done it to everyone else. And isn't this what we see in society? It's so easy to project your morals, your opinions on everyone else when you're not actually behaving like that yourself.
Or how you can manipulate your own self.
Yeah.
How you can gaslight yourself into what I would highly, and I would love to, Catherine, if you want to do a whole breakdown on that series, because it is one of my
I think let us know in the comments if you want us to, because I'm so like you, I'm so into psychology and things, and I thought this is absolutely gold, and it just says so much about where we are as humanity. And of course, what's even more interesting is everyone's put themselves voluntary in that situation, so they know they're going in there to be
they know the game. Yeah,
the whole game. And I've never watched it before. I've just gone straight into series 3 of the UK, so I didn't even know. I've no idea still how someone wins. I don't know how that gets to that.
It's different every season the way it turns out. But yeah, it is one, and it literally I've tried to get my boyfriend to watch it too, because I think he would really like it too, but he doesn't like game shows. I'm like, no, I don't like game shows either. Like,
I don't either. This is so different. And one night, it was actually my son's girlfriend that said, "Oh, Catherine, I think you'd really like it." And I was like, "Oh no, I don't." And then I watched it and I messaged her. I said, "Oh my God, I'm addicted. This is absolute gold. It really is." Because if you watch it with so many lessons, and when I'm saying so many lessons, I'm not meaning, Bryce, in terms of pretending that I'm any different or any better. No, I'm not. I'm saying if you take this as a cross section of personalities, because there's so many different people in there, it's absolutely brilliant to see how easily manipulated people are, how easy it is to change their opinion and course and direction very easily, how potent groupthink is. There's so much more I could go into, so let us know.
Mass formation psychosis happens, like it is
absolutely.
So basically, you guys, the premise is, and I'm showing some shots. This is all, like, there's the UK host. The American host is Alan Cumming. And it's funny if you watch both, because I'm addicted to the show. So I watch like every country's because it's so fascinating. They use the same script kind of with the host, but that's whatever. But then everything else with the people, it's all obviously not scripted. So you guys, like however many people, say 20 people show up at the location, and they sit around a round table, and they're blindfolded, and the host will pick like 3 or 4 traitors, just tap them on the shoulder. So nobody know. You go into the game not knowing if you're going to be a faithful or a traitor. And so you have to do all these games, and every night you vote. You try to vote the traitors out, and you end up voting. And then at night, the traitor will murder one of the faithfuls, And so it's just intriguing to see the round table, and they also how emotional they get, like fighting with each other. And it's like, y'all, it's just a game though. Like, it's literally just a game. But how one person, if they're manipulative enough, can sway the opinion of everybody at that table. And I would never want to play this game because I'd probably cry, but I would love to host this game because I find this so freaking fascinating. And you guys, if you've never seen this, like I said, there are multiple seasons for you've got a whole slew of human behavior. It's like a human behavior study. That's all it is.
It's absolutely brilliant. It's just so good. And I think it's so relevant to what we're seeing now. I think it's so easy for us to look at these people and we can, just getting back to the JD Vance, we can look with so what I would have noticed in that little crit, because of where my attention goes, will be completely different to every other person that watches it. So what I noticed is his dog didn't go to him. The dog was really stressed, and also that is a really badly bred German Shepherd, and I'm not into breeding mine, complete mongrels off the street. But what I'm into, when you breed German Shepherds with the back like that, that dog's going to have such hip problems as it gets older, and it's disgusting. That's that's genetic modification of dog. Their back should be like that, not like that. So, and that's, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying, is it interesting because of my bias? That's where I go to that clip.
Right.
That's why I'm doing book clubs with groups of friends, because you're all read the same book and come out with completely different things, you know.
There's where he interrupted the interview with Tucker Carlson and went and just stood by Vance.
Well, that doesn't even look like the same dog, because if you look at the dogs, well, I can't really see from that picture, but if you look at the one on the right with the airport and look at the slope of that dog's back, and then you look at that picture there and the slope of that dog's back, the one with Tucker Carlson. So click on that picture of Tucker Carlson. Let me look at that dog. So can we enlarge it at all or not?
I don't know. I don't know if I can
I'll have a look. But if you,
yeah, it might just be the way the camera angle
and the way the dog stands.
There's a video. You can see this on. Actually, let me see if I have it.
Actually, it is the same dog. I can see the things. But yeah, this is what I mean. Is we've all got confirmation bias. Yeah. Myself, massive improvement. So I'm not saying that because I know enough to know I can't make any conclusions from watching one picture and one click. I need to watch hundreds to even be able to come up with a pattern. But that's how we do. We jump to conclusions so quickly as a human race.
And traders is a good example of that, because a lot of these people, except for the Americans, because some of them have played against each other before and some of them kind of know each other. But even that, if you just know somebody from TV, you have a perspective. That's with the parasocial relationship. I'm sure, you know, for you and me, Catherine, for people who watch us, we love our viewers. But if you came to our houses, you'd probably, your assumption of us is probably very different from what we are, because we make these, and it's a lot of it's just subconscious. It's not bad or good. It's just the way we are as humans. And a lot of that subconscious reaction is what keeps us alive too in a lot of situations. So it's neither bad nor good. It just is what it is. But if you know about it, and those who do know about it have been able to manipulate that, and with the traders thing, for those who don't know each other, they're having to make these quick decisions within like a 12-hour period of just meeting these people.
Absolutely. So nothing's based on deaths. And you've made some really important point there I want to pick up on, because, okay, so getting back to the JD Vance, I thought his story was incredible. And I think it's amazing what he's achieved through no sugar spoon in his mouth. That's for absolutely sure. But then I would also say, isn't he one of the part owners of Rumble?
Oh, I don't know. I can look that up.
When I looked him up initially, it looked like he was one of the part owners of Rumble. And if that's the case, then how clever, because Rumble we're all seeing as the alternative where we can be safe to say whatever we want. But what a brilliant data collection platform that is as well.
He's invested in it.
Invested in it. Okay, so not an owner. He's one of the investors. Isn't it brilliant? So I love Rumble. Thank you, Rumble. I love you. However, what a perfect data collection all these things are. I mean, it makes me laugh when people say I don't use WhatsApp because it's not safe. Nothing you do on your phone is safe. If you're deluded if you think any of the stuff you do on your phone is safe. Even if you switch it off, they've got integral batteries, they're still recording, they're still picking up, they can still track you, whatever. Now, some are more safe than others, of course, you know, and you can get various VPNs and things like that that will make you more safe again, but nothing's unhackable, nothing's untraceable.
Yeah.
So it's really fascinating when you think, okay, that's really fascinating. So you've got someone, when you look, and I haven't looked in detail, I've just done a superficial look about someone's business centers. It tells you a lot. Energy flows where attention goes. So in one respect, you've got all this technological development that he's doing, and it looks like there's a lot of sort of science and, you know, linked to the pharma industry. And then you've got investing in Rumble. Now, I don't believe someone with his sort of attributes, his sort of skills, doesn't take seriously where he invests in. So I would make an assumption that he's consciously choosing where he invests his money. Yeah. And in which case, how interesting. How interesting is that? How do you via that bit of his business activities with that? Where's the common ground?
Do you know what else I found interesting about him too in that interview, Catherine? It made me remember, and we've said this a lot, you know, most of us, I think, in most of our countries are really centrist anyway. I don't think anybody's really extreme far right or far left. I think most of us are pretty centrist.
Yeah.
And I don't know about y'all's political parties over in the UK where this would fall, but something he said interesting about something that he believes in that most Republicans don't is unions. That he supports the unions. And that's one thing I wanted to also, because we talk about that community, and he brought that back, like the Appalachia, even if you're in a really, toxic family like he was, it's kind of like these are our people and we protect our own. And that's what he gives people. Now, and I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that because I know, like, for me, it's like, again, that's one of those areas where I don't really have an opinion because I think they can be used for good and for bad. Do you guys have unions over in the UK? And
oh, big time. It's been a huge part of our culture and very class related as well, because obviously we've got huge class related issues over in the UK. And I think to me, again, it's not an area I'm an expert in, but to me, it shows that every single one of us has a desire to belong.
Yeah.
It's so far back into, and isn't it interesting that it's called our reptilian brain? No accident there. The thing is we are not a species that can survive long on our own.
Right.
We need communities. That's why solitary confinement is the worst possible punishment often you can give people. Although I'd probably prefer that to being locked in a cell with some people. But in all seriousness, we need to belong to a communities, and the unions, of course, they can be used for good, and of course they can be used for bad. But that sense of belonging and knowing that there's other people, that you're not fighting on your own.
You're protected. There's protection there.
Your own, and there's quite a lot of protection there. So when you take it down to a lot of the criticisms of unions come to the fact that they're not. There's a lot of protection that you don't get in private companies.
Right.
But that's the whole point. That's why you have these different systems, and different skills and personalities will fit in better to different systems. Not everyone's designed to be an entrepreneur, and they shouldn't be, because I think COVID showed us big time that a lot of the jobs that had a lot of status behind us, at the end of the day, a lot of these lawyers sitting behind desks, all these white collar workers that have got snobby jobs, or accountants and things like that, they're not going to be able to grow your food, mend your house. When the shit really hits the fan, they're not much good to you, quite frankly.
You're not going to be able to go to the coal and mine the coal to help power.
Yeah, or mend something, or build something, or grow something, or herbal medicine, or childcare, or a community leader. Even if you take even the church out of it, but everyone needs some sort of belief system to join on to, and that's been very much manipulated down the religious side of things. But we've all got beliefs in some areas. On my dog walk today was thinking about a lot of mine, and we get slandered a lot of the time for our beliefs on what we should and shouldn't eat and things like that. So we've all got these beliefs, and as we all say, they are like assholes and they will stink. So but it's very fascinating looking at these, and again, time will tell. But we can't expect these people to be all things to all men. You cannot be. You've got to have different people with different bias. And I suppose the skill is, like in any industry, we've criticized so much as a community of humans the top-down approach, and being led by whoever the master controllers are that we hate, and we don't even know the names of most of them, because the ones that we can name, there's so many layers above. But isn't that how most businesses are run? It's just so much of our community is set up like this, and yet we're resisting so hard in some areas and then begging for it almost in others.
Yeah, we are probably one of the most perplexing species to ever walk the face of the earth, because, and it's another thing too, like I always try to give grace to people as well. I know we've talked about this too, and I know people have said, Vance, he's been involved in some of these corrupt businesses, but then I look back at my resume and so have I. I've worked for businesses that were
absolutely.
So, and I know we've gotten that before, Catherine. Like, there was once upon a time where you and I would get shit because we have a checking account. We're on YouTube. It's like, what what fairyland do you think we live in where we can excuse ourselves from the matrix? We have to pay our bills. We can't pay our bills in lollipops and crayons. Like, we have to pay our bills the way, you know. And so I think sometimes we also put these expectations on these leaders that we should, because they're having to survive as well. And so they're having to, and my boyfriend reminds me of that a lot. Like, you know, just like we have to understand that there are some compromises they're also going to have to make in order to continue to preserve their life.
Yeah.
Literally. So they're not, or, you know, help roll other things forward. And so, you know, it's this very perplexing predicament we find ourselves in. You know, I know Cliff High was even saying that if we accept the galactics like other species, it's going to totally mess up our economy because we're in a closed system. But if we open it, it's going to change. So it's like I think sometimes too, Catherine, I think a lot of people are delusional. We talk about this with spirituality as well, that a lot of people come into, like, especially like they'll come into a yoga shala and they think that once they start practicing, everything's just going to be like unicorns and rainbows and golden streets. But it actually kind of gets worse before it starts to get better. Like, everything starts to fall apart. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of these politicians. And fair enough to us, we have PTSD. We do have trauma from so we're even more suspect for other people. It's this predicament we're in. And it's like listening to these interviews. Like, I love listening to the interview with Vance because it was before I even knew who he was, that he did this interview, and you see that human side of him come out, and the way that he was able to like humanize some of these issues. And with the whole union thing, he talked about that community, that it gives that community back. And I also thought how remarkable, because we've talked about this before, Catherine, about listening to understand instead of to react. And how better would it be if we actually, and all of our countries, sat down with people who had different perspectives from us and like listened to them to understand where they're coming from, versus
absolutely
them or rebuff them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Like, we could do a whole show on that clip with him and his dog. And I could tell you, like, I was like, oh, that dog's going to have bad back legs and it looks very stressed. But of course it's going to be stressed. It's by an airport with loads of people it doesn't know. And there's going to be all
going off.
And it went nicely up the steps. And how wonderful that the family are treating their dog exactly the same as their children and taking them with them. How beautiful. That's how a dog should be treated, so long as it's in their best interest and not going to cause them more stress. So there's so much complexity about a 30-second clip that you can read so many different ways. And the whole point is they're all just assumptions. They're all just assumptions. And with what's going on, even like the different alien races, like you were saying with Cliff High, well, I strongly believe they're all with us already. Now, whether we can actually see them, because they might be in different densities or dimensions, whichever it is that we can't, they're not in a physical body. You know, you have loads of experiences. I keep sitting here and I keep seeing someone going across there, and I look out and I'm like, there's no one there. And I'm like, oh, well, there is. Just come in and say hello next time. Come and join us on screen and we can all see who you are. But in all seriousness,
on screen, because that would boost Catherine and my numbers.
Yeah, please do. Come and do us a favor and just show it. It would be so brilliant.
I'm going to go viral so quickly.
In my garden, it's the least you can do is give me a boost up. But this is what I mean. You know, I don't know these people, and it's that fine line between absolutely wanting to see the best in people, but also keeping an open mind. And I have no idea about this guy, and quite honestly, we've got more pressing concerns back at home. But they're all, you know, it's all part of the clan. And I think there's going to be executive orders that we like, and there's going to be ones we don't like. And our natural ability is to say, see, look, and pick the one that fits our narrative and use that. But you could equally pick others that don't. And I think I was just bringing up the serenity prayer, and I just keep going back to this at the moment. You know, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And you know, I started off camera by telling you about something absolutely horrific I saw on social media, and I'm not even going to repeat it here, about animal abuse. And that's what I have to keep reminding myself is like, what things can I change and what things can I not? And therefore it doesn't do anyone or anything any good me putting my attention on the things that I literally can't influence at all. But I will come up to, sorry, I'm talking a lot today, but on the things of they say the messenger RNA vaccines for the big C word. Look, we know we can work with telepathy. There's so many studies that huge that prove that we can. The only thing that stops us all is our belief systems.
Yeah.
So what if we put all this attention that we put outside of ourselves to wondering, what about this, what about that? What about if we all sat there and learned how to telepathically communicate?
Right.
Job done. We
Do you
wouldn't
know
need to
that
ask who the traitor was.
The Cassiopeians say we're like one of the only planets that actually has verbal language.
Exactly.
And
Completely.
that's why we can't, that's why we've lost our ability to have telepathy, is because we've relied so much on our verbal language, and I think, I think that with Ravi, with my little boy, my little fur boy, sometimes I'll get a feeling like, oh, he needs something, and I'll go out, and sure enough, like he's just ran out of water or something.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that's just my psychic. That I think that's me being attuned.
Absolutely.
I think when you have an animal in your house or a child in your house that can't verbally speak yet, you are subconsciously attuned to their needs. Usually when he gets really quiet, that's when I panic, because like a child, I'm like, what is he? What did he just get into?
Yeah, completely. What are you up to?
What bill is he ripping up right now?
We've all got this ability, but we've been so bashed and beaten down into not trusting ourselves, and having false statuses put on us or taken away from us, that actually if we all literally spent half an hour a day practicing our telepathic communications, we could solve all this problem straight away, because we'd know who the traitors were. We'd know who, we literally would. And you're never going to get it 100% right, because no one person is all good or all bad.
Right.
No one animal is all good or bad. Our traumas manifest themselves in different behaviors at different times in our life. And I don't think there's one single person watching this that wouldn't look back to their teenage years and think, I wouldn't particularly like that to come out.
Yeah,
so I just want my mum to know.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because even in the Law of One, talks about to graduate. They say harvesting. I really don't like that word, but to graduate, we'll say to fourth density positive, you have to be 51% service to others. So that means they're giving you a huge room for error, a huge room to like mess up and be selfish and make mistakes. And I think sometimes I think about that, like the grayness there, like going back to that grayness, like sometimes I think people come at situations and they have a really good intention.
Yeah.
It's like what they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? So they weren't maliciously trying to hurt anybody, but maybe it didn't work out the way they thought it was, and it did hurt people. So, we have to we have to take everything with a grain of salt, but also have forgiveness as well, because in understanding that every other human being, especially those that are, because in my opinion, as of today, I do believe Trump and Vance they have the best intention at heart for the American people. Am I going to agree with everything they put out? No. Am I going to be curious about? Yes. And I'm still going to take that with a grain of salt, though. I don't want to be so blindsided, so stuck in that psychosis, that mass formation psychosis, that I'm going to be blind to things that could be dangerous. And that's a very strange. I don't think humans like being in that predicament. I don't think they like being in that area where they don't have certainty. But nothing.
Absolutely.
What was it saying? Nothing in life is certain except for death and taxes.
Yeah.
And so
my question for that, and I, to some extent, again, there's so many things today that we could literally do a whole show on. It would just be, and I would love to. So let us know in the comments which bits you'd like us to do more on. But my question is we have this saying as humans that have they got their best intention? But the question is what is that best intention? Yeah. Because that can differ for everyone. So someone can, like a lot of my friends work for the pharmaceutical industry. They are lovely people. I've known them since I was 18. Yeah. They genuinely think that they're doing the best possible and trying to help people. Absolutely, 100% they do. I might think every time you work with animal rescue, there's this debate. Is it in the animal's best interest to have them put to sleep if they're too traumatized, too damaged, too injured, too unsuitable for rehoming, and there's never a clear answer, because some person might say yes, it's in their best interest to do that, and someone else will absolutely prove you wrong.
Yeah.
And take a blind dog with, that can't use its back legs and is incontinent, that goes on to have an amazing happy life. So that, I think, when we get, there is never, as very often, there's not a simple right or wrong answer to these things. And therefore, most of the inventions, they could absolutely genuinely believe that they are doing the best thing for their people and for the world at large. But that doesn't mean that we need to. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're inherently evil.
Right.
And I think we've got so into labeling, which I
black, white, yeah.
And isn't it interesting, going back to the alien link, isn't it interesting that everyone's got such a negative connotation about the greys?
Yeah.
And the grey is a dirty word. It's a dirty word in the alien word, but also you're not allowed to not have a strong opinion.
Right. That goes back to that black and white thinking, and that's one thing I think part of the reason why you and I both tried to distance ourselves from the community, because I saw these red flags that this is a personality disorder. To paint groups of people as totally bad or totally good is a sign of a personality disorder. And isn't that clever? How they would get you stuck in a corner to be in that delusion. And again, guys, watch Traitors, because you see the disintegration of the human mind in that show. I mean, these people are making money doing it, but and also just the effort. I think sometimes, as we've been talking, I had to look it up to make sure it was the right sea creature, but the story of the starfish.
Yeah.
When there's a huge storm, all these starfish are up on the coast, and this lone man is walking and throwing them back in the ocean, and a guy walks up, he's like, what are you doing? You're never going to have time to get all these starfish back in the ocean. You're not going to make a difference to the, and he throws one, and I just made a difference to that one.
Exactly.
So it comes back to our own lives, and every single day taking steps to make sure we're okay, to make sure we're putting the oxygen mask on ourselves first. Stop pointing at different directions for someone to save us, or relying on somebody else to save us. Do the best you can to participate in your life and to have effort in your life. And if we take the positive side of Vance's story, that's what he did. He didn't just surrender to his circumstances. He became a Marine in the United States. I don't know about the UK, but if you join the Marines, the GI program bill where you can use it to pay for your education, your undergrad. He went to a really good Ohio State, and then he ended up going to Yale, so where he met his wife, who is the first, she made history as being the first truly Asian American as a second lady, and practicing Hindu in the White House. And so, and again, it goes back to that, like, it sounds silly to have to remind this community, but to not take everything other people say as fact, research it for yourself, because I fell into that trap of thinking JD Vance was a super fundamentalist and it wasn't going to be good. But then I realized his wife was Indian American, and when I looked, I was like, okay, no, if he were fundamentalist, he would have never married a practicing Hindu to begin with. So he's obviously not that conservative with religions if his children are interfaith, if they're practicing Christians and practicing Hindus. He's obviously more open-minded than we're giving him credit for when it comes to that. So, You have
the saying over there, horses for courses. So, if you've got a horse, the thing is like the type of horse you would want to buy to do show jumping on is very different from the type of horse you would use to plow your fields. Yeah. And you've seen this analogy a lot. The type of man I'd want to be with if we were, I needed protecting, might be very different to the type of one that I want to sit down and watch Traitors with.
Yes, exactly.
It's different things. If you're choosing in the way that the way of the world as I knew it, when I was choosing a life partner, would be very different if we were in hand-to-hand combat, or I had to forage for my own food and things like that. Sorry, Mark, but I don't think you'd be good at that. Hunting and providing that. So, in all seriousness, this thing is really important about who's the best person for that job, and the best person for that job, you can't expect them to be every type of other personality. You can't be really empathetic and go in and make different decisions a lot of the time. You've got to have a little bit of a hard streak in you where you can look at the greater good. And
I could never be president. I could never be in the military. As I said, I could never even play the game of Traitors. I'd probably sit there and break down and cry. Or if I was...
I think I'd quite like to.
I would, if they tap me to be a trader, which I think that's what I want to be. Like most people want to be the trader because you actually have more power as the trader.
Yeah.
And I think I would give it away. I think
Yeah.
my cheeks would turn red, or I'd like start giggling. I don't think
Mm.
I think I would, although I say that, I used to play poker back in LA, and I actually was really good at it. I actually had a pretty good poker face. I say that, but I don't know if maybe my poker would come back.
I'd like to have, if they have a YouTube traders, we'll go on it and we'll see, because this is what the episode I watched last night. I know we've got to finish because we've been going on a long while and we'll bore everyone. But what I loved is the conversation going around for the UK one, where they all sitting there saying, God, I've really learned a lot about myself because I thought I'd find this easy, or I thought I'd trust my intuition, or I thought I'd do this, and how have we got it so wrong? You know, I've
It
got
would
it
probably
really,
be
really
easy if
wrong.
you
And I thought, wow, if you've learned that from it, it's been worth going on.
And if you were playing the game with a bunch of people you already knew really well, it probably would be pretty easy because you know their
Yeah,
channels, you know the way they behave, you know. But when it's a group of strangers,
really hard.
it's really hard, and the game's going so fast. I mean, they drag it out on our TV shows, but they're literally going, 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 going,
Yeah.
going, going, going. Catherine, you know, maybe we could, because they do have some British people that come on the American shows. Like we have one of the Mountbattens on the King's like second cousin or something is on the American. We had a Brit, and one of the season there was a guy from Parliament, from the British Parliament, that was on because they use celebrities in the American one. So you guys, maybe since you technically, Catherine, with the size of our channels, we are technically public people. So we might, if anybody knows the casting directors for the American traders, we might be able to get Catherine a spot on the American traders.
Can you imagine? I wouldn't know any of the other people though. That's the problem. I can be saying, I don't know any. I don't know. Mel Gibson. I know. We'll have to do another talk.
It's not A-listers. It's just
reality. Can I say? Can we do another show? Let us know in the comments if you want us to discuss the fact that Mel Gibson, Sylvester Stallone, and John Voight have been given a role. I think that's worth a discussion as well. So yeah.
No,
I only know about Mel Gibson.
Yeah, definitely. We can talk about that. And I also, you guys, if you guys want us to do a real big breakdown of traders, let us know, because I'm serious. If you have not seen that show and you like the stuff that Catherine and I talk about, and you've been like, it is one of the most fascinating programs. It really, really is. And I actually love all the drills that they do, the games they play. I think those would be fun that they do.
I think they'd be really fun. And I think, you know, it's, I think a lot of these things, you learn a lot about yourself that you didn't know. And that's always a good thing. It might not be nice learning it on a public platform. That's harsh.
Well, we've had to do that, Catherine. So
yeah, but not quite that extreme. But yeah, I think it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. I loved it. And let's just look, keeping all options open at the moment. Put those positive vibes out there, but keep your little beady eyes on what's going on.
Yeah, have faith, but also don't be stupid. Carry everything with a grain of salt. And you guys, for those who are new to my channel, I will place Catherine's links down in the description box below for her channel, her website, everything. We switch up every other week, so next week we'll be over on Catherine's channel. And I think the next week I have a topic that I've been dying to talk about for a long time now, like over a month now, but we keep putting it off because of more pressing issues. I won't say what it is because I think our audience will actually hysterically laugh at the topic, that because we've been laughing at it for a couple of years now, and I just sent it to Catherine. She's like, what the hell? So it's a new product. It's a new product we have here in America. But anyway, you guys, I've got Nora is part 3 with Nora is coming up on Monday. I think Catherine's going to join us for like the first hour of that conversation. If you guys are also like the psychology, please make sure you check out Nora's episodes and also her channel, because she's an ex-Scientologist. I backed away from Scientology for a little while after Doug passed away, but Nora's hysterical and she's smart, isn't she, Catherine? Like she knows.
Very smart, and very open and honest as well. It's I learn a lot every time I listen from her. I really appreciate her conversations and her honesty.
Absolutely. It's called What's Up. Her channel is What's Up with Nora. But again, that part 3 we'll be filming it on Monday, so it'll probably be released on Tuesday. I know I've just released today part 2 with her conversation. It's a deep story, and she's really gets into the way the mind works with narcissistic abuse, and the way, you know, I loved how she talked about being an injury. The trauma is an injury. It's not necessarily a disorder. It's an injury to the brain. And so those are all very fascinating conversations, guys. So anyway, you guys,
thank you so much.
We'll see you next week on Catherine's channel next week. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.